everybody, welcome back to another episode of Quick Strikes here on the Bay Bulge channel. The Lightning have snapped their three-game losing streak, the longest losing streak of the season, defeating the Columbus Blue Jackets by a final score of 3-2. Braden Point, the hero, with 2 goals in this one. My name is Michael Wax, joined as always with my co-host Jake Ricker. Jake, a very frustrating game for the most part with a satisfying ending. How are you doing tonight?
Michael, play all night. Finally get to say that again after a 3-game losing streak. I'm very happy because we got the win at the end of the day. As always, there's positives and negatives from this game to talk about. So can't wait to get in with you. Got some fan questions as well for today. Hopefully this video hasn't had any issues getting uploaded like it did last time. So I apologize for anybody that was looking out for that video and it never came out. But excited to get into this one. Happy we got a Lightning win to talk about.
Yeah, and we'd love to hear from you guys in the comments down below. What did you like? What did you not like? More specifically, Jake and I are going to talk about this first. We don't want to make this video too long, but we want to talk about the new change that's coming with Tampa Bay Lightning. Out goes Fox Sports, in comes Bally Sports. Jake, you and I have differing opinions on this, but you said to me you didn't actually mind this.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are not huge fans of it. And listen, let me just say up front, there are definitely some things that I don't like about it. But this is the first time we're seeing this. It's a big change. It's definitely not anything like we're used to when it comes to the Fox Sports brand. I didn't hate it. I think there's a lot of positive things from it. I actually kind of liked the little transitions they had when there were goals scored and stuff like that. I thought they looked okay. I know a lot of people are complaining about there's kind of a gray bar at the bottom, or scoreboard could have been like moved down. So there's a little couple nitpicks here and there that I think could be improved. Like, for example, I'd love to see more advanced statistics on that right-hand side because they have just other scores around the NHL, which is great. But I think, popping up maybe some ice time stats or goal leaders, I don't know, something like that could be really beneficial. Maybe that's something they do down the road. But, this is new. I don't hate it. I think it's got some work. They're using this for all the different sports right now, for the Rays, for the Lightning, for the Magic. So I'm sure it's a work in progress for them as well. But, I didn't mind it.
Yeah, it was actually really interesting. We talk about how in earlier in the season, ESPN and the NHL came up with their new deal. This scoreboard actually reminded me a lot of the scoreboards that ESPN is using for the NBA this season and for the NFL for the past few seasons. And I have not liked those, so I sort of had a preset mindset when going into this new graphics package, which I had seen a couple days before because the Lightning were not the first team to integrate towards this in any sport. But I will say the hockey part of it has been far better than something like baseball, which we got to see our team Tampa Bay Rays go 1-0 to start the season. That package does not look as good in terms of the graphics and the bar underneath for the scoreboard as the NHL one does. So it could be a lot worse. I think there are some things to fix, like you said. But at the end of the day, if it's a bunch of nitpicky stuff, just like the team that we cheer for, then honestly, we don't have it that bad.
Hey, as long as the Lightning are picking up wins, I don't care what network it's on. I just want to watch these guys play hockey. That's the most important thing, right, Michael?
Uh, NBC, there's a line.
Oh, that's true.
There's a line. But going from the new network to sort of a new thing that we have to start worrying about, which is the big problem on defense. We look at the second period in particular. The Columbus Blue Jackets, who are not a very offensively sound team, they have playmakers like Mcdonough, like Patrick Laine. They have guys like that, but they're not an offensively solid team. Dominated the Lightning in the offensive zone, and they got breakaways and they got odd man rushes. The second period defensively has been an absolute nightmare for the Lightning recently. I'm wondering what they can do to fix it. I don't know if it's because of the long change or what could potentially be going on with certain lines, but this has been a serious problem that is creeping up on the Lightning.
I think it's still due to these injuries that we have on the back end of the defense. I think that's playing a large role into this because really we started to see this problem when we started facing these injuries. Luckily, Ryan McDonough was back in action tonight. I thought he was solid for the most part. Didn't jump off the page or anything like that, but that was nice to have McDonough back in the lineup. But again, still without Eric Chernak and Jan Ruda, and those may not seem like two huge pieces to the defense, but they make a big impact because then you got a line like Boardman and Shen, who again, actually they were okay, but those guys alone, you are not your top tier defenseman, and then that's making Cal Foote play a lot more minutes than he's used to, and he's still a young rookie. He made a mistake on one of the plays in the goals today, so he's still a young rookie, and when he gets put up into those higher minute games, he's going to make some mistakes. So I think that the injuries still have something to do with this. So hopefully we can get everybody back soon, and then we can kind of make a judgment call and see if this is still a problem and it's really just the way they're playing defense thing, or if it's just because of the injuries.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the names don't really jump off the page. John Ruda, Eric Chernak does a little bit. He's sort of getting more recognition in the national media as a really solid defensive defenseman. But you're right; they're making Mikhail Sergachev play on his offside, which I would say he's been pretty decent at. Like him and
Agreed.
Hedman, uh, it's not something that I would like to see every single night. But when he called it on to do it in a pinch, he's actually pretty good at it. Cal Foote, I don't know if he's ready for a top four role. Like, I think he's going to be a great defenseman in this league, but he really needs those third pair minutes with someone like Mikhail Sergachev. Or if he's going to be in the top four, it's going to be like tonight where he was with Ryan McDonough, someone that's defensively responsible and can carry him to a good game with him possibly making a couple of mistakes. Foot got absolutely destroyed on that second goal. And you might like Vasilevskiy make a save. He wasn't necessarily tied to the post like he's supposed to be, but not really a good performance by Foot on that goal. Overall, he was fine tonight. And then you've got potentially your third pair defender as either Luke Shen or they just called up Ben Thomas from the taxis or from the Syracuse Crunch to the taxi squad. I don't love either of those options. I think you are exactly right when you say that this is probably an injury thing and nothing is sort of concrete in terms of the way they're playing. Nothing really needs to be fixed where you can point at it and you say that's the problem. But at the same time, if you're going to have injuries and every team is, you want your replacements to be good and you want them to fall into the system. And the Lightning just aren't having that happen.
That's a good point. You want guys to step in and be able to step up and take over when you do have these injuries, and that's where you might say, well, maybe the Lightning can make a move at the deadline to try and pick up some new pieces. But again, that goes back to the Lightning, as we've talked about before, not having cap space to make any of these moves, which just makes that much more difficult. So basically what I say is take this defensive struggles with a grain of salt, and really we get a good idea of this, I think, when everybody comes back, because I do think that's playing a large factor, and hopefully come playoff time, everybody will be healthy, and we won't have to worry about this too much in dealing with injuries for an extended period of time, but only time will tell.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope this is a short-term issue. If it continues into the next couple of games because Ruda and Chernak are not in the lineup, I'm much more forgiving if things change once those two guys come back into the lineup. So going from that negative, which I think is the biggest negative from today's game, let's go right into the positives. The game overall was not a flawless game by any means, but there were a couple of players who had pretty flawless performances. One of them was Braden Point. I mentioned, I think, in the last video that Braden Point looked absolutely exhausted. He's been playing his heart out every single night. And maybe exhaustion was finally catching up to him because he still looked really good, but he was really, really tired. And you could tell because he wasn't 100%. Tonight he proved me wrong. Like he decided to kick it into 11th gear and just dominate the Blue Jackets, which is something that we didn't know whether we would see or not because in the first game against them, not only was he sluggish, but he fell into that defensive trap. Well, in this game, he scored 2 goals, the power play 5-on-3. Merzlikins almost got it, but it got past him by the slightest of margins. And you could say what you want about a lucky bounce on that 3-2 goal, but good players get lucky sometimes when they drive play and make things happen. And that's exactly what happened with Point.
Yeah, the way he's able to just stick handle around multiple defensemen, get in zones is just absolutely unbelievable to watch, to say the least. He is fantastic. He had speed tonight. He made great hockey IQ plays, and he ended up getting two huge goals for the Lightning and ended up helping them to win this game. I actually thought Tyler Johnson may have got a stick on that originally, but it was all Braden Point getting in front of the net and just getting it on goal. And sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to get down low in the dirty areas, put the puck on net, and try to get one in. And then I also thought that Victor Hedman was fantastic tonight. He had a huge play to save a goal. I could not believe how Victor Hedman was able to focus and take his stick and whack that puck out of the net right before it crossed the line. Andre Vasilevskiy was also stellar tonight, as always, which is always really good to see. So, a lot of positives from those guys. Victor Hedman, Andre Vasilevskiy, Braden Point. They were all, I think, my top three players for the Bolts. Steven Stamkos as well. He had another great game for them.
Yeah, absolutely. There, like I mentioned earlier, there were really solid performances by a lot of the individual players. I think the only line that had a consistently solid performance is the one that we talk about all the time. It was the fourth line. They're still generating chances. They are still giving it their all every single shift. Pat Maroon is just dumbing people left and right. Ross Colton with another goal tonight. Matthew Joseph with a slick passing play to set things up for that Colton game winning goal. But, Jake, anything else positive or negative before we get to our fan questions?
Well, real just quick, I'll add to that fourth line comment. I mean, that fourth line is unbelievable. I love it. I mean, it makes a really interesting situation when Mitchell Stevens eventually does come back. How do you replace, take away that fourth line with Ross Colton? I mean, that Ross Colton, Matthew Joseph, and Pat Maroon line is just fantastic. Every single night they're out there playing their hardest, making plays, had a goal tonight. That was a great play by Maroon to drop that puck off and a great shot from Ross Colton. So absolutely fantastic by that fourth line. They are really carrying this team, even in the games where they're losing some of that through game losing streak. That fourth line was great in all of them. The one other negative I'll mention, I know a lot of people are talking about this. Tyler Johnson's kind of struggled these last couple of games. I've typically defended him, but he really hasn't been that great as of late. So hopefully he can kind of turn things around and get things back on track. Maybe we see him moved at the trade deadline and clear up some cap space. I don't know. But
Hey,
that's a
JVB said no trades. We got to keep that in line.
yeah, hey, a kid can dream, right? You never know.
That's true.
But that'll be another topic for another day. But overall, I said, Michael, it wasn't a perfect game. There isn't going to be perfect games like that. If there is a perfect game, I mean, wow, put that video up in a frame. But they played really well for the most part. They had a bad second period again, which is kind of becoming a theme where they really struggled in that second period for some reason. But for the most part, they played solid, had some good offensive opportunities, did make some key defensive stops when needed, a little too many than most people would have liked. But, overall, solid game. We ended up getting the win at the end of the day, which is the most important thing.
Absolutely. And from there, we will go on to our fan questions, guys. We love every single night after every single game. We'll post on Twitter if you guys have any fan questions, and we will answer them here in the YouTube videos. First question comes from Meg Bailey at SeaGhost78 on Twitter. I may have missed this, but has a tentative date been set for Kucherov's return? I think the short answer to this question is no, and you'll probably see him in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the tentative date is the playoffs. That's when he's expected to come back. They haven't had any other updates recently, although he has been skating a lot more. He had a powder blue practice jersey on, which looked really good, if I do
So
say so
good.
myself. Kind of a throwback to the Ray when they had the Rays themed pregame jerseys as well. But I'm getting off track. But yes, no certain date of when he's supposed to be back. It's kind of been just said playoffs, maybe a little bit sooner. Which if that's the case, there's a whole nother, scenario. We have to move cap space around if he does come back because the Lightning are not doing this for cap purposes. Just want to get that out of the way. But hopefully he will be back and ready to go for the playoffs.
Absolutely. And our other fan question, also coming from Twitter, from Violet Millis, hopefully I got the last name right, at Purple Vault 71, asked, how do you feel about the bounce back after the losing streak we had? What changed? What can still be changed? Also, any new gifts out there in the works? I'm very excited. Love you guys. Have you on Scene First for a reason. Well, we appreciate that very much. We put a lot of work in this channel, but as far as the gifts go, there was a Colton GIF. That's my fault for not using it during the game. There will be another couple of ones coming out. Also, Jake is working very hard on those. As far as the game itself, Jake, what changed and how do you feel about the bounce back?
Well, this is a great question, by the way. I love this. So, these are great questions, guys. Please keep sending them in. I think as for what changed, I mean, well, we saw in the last game against Columbus, I think that's when we saw what changed. The Lightning really got their legs back under them and played a good game. This time, the puck just kind of bounced their way and they were able to get those goals they needed to win the game. So they got their feet back under them. They were playing good offense, getting pucks to the net, getting shots on goal, creating opportunities. That's what changed from not necessarily the last game, but the games before this Columbus series. And then what could still be worked on? The defense obviously still struggling. And the main point, though, I think is the second period, because it seems like every time the Lightning will either play a really good first, and then maybe in the third period it's even, but back and forth. But it's always that second period that just seems to be an issue for the Bolts. So I really like to see them have a strong second period in one of these games. I think that's the biggest difference we'd like to see. But it does seem like they've gotten their feet back under them a little bit here, and they're making really smart offensive plays, which you know this team is one of the best at.
Yeah, as far as what I think changed in this game and how the bounce back happened, Ryan McDonough, like he was really solid tonight for the Lightning. Didn't get any points, didn't jump off the score sheet, but his presence is always felt on the team. He played 25 minutes in his return. He almost played half the game tonight. And it's really helpful when you can have someone to be that 1B to Victor Hedman. I don't know if you can necessarily call him a 1B because he's so good. But again, Victor Hedman is also just outstanding. And then as far as what needs to get changed, I'd like to see the forward lines get mixed up a little bit more. There have been some players that have had really solid performances, but as far as actual lines go, there are two lines that really come to mind that have done fairly well recently. The first one is the Gord Goodrow Coleman line, which always seems to do well. And the second line is the fourth line. Like your bottom six can't be the ones that are driving play, and Point has had a couple of good games recently. Stamkos has had a couple of good games recently. I'd like to see Point go back to playing with Stamkos. I think that would be a lot of fun if we did Point, Palat, Stamkos. A second line, perhaps, of if you want to move Gord to the wing, I think that would be a bad idea. But Gord, Sorelli, Killorn, that could be a lot of fun. Put Johnson back at center in Goudreau, Johnson, Coleman, and leave the fourth line the way it is unless Mitchell Stevens comes back and you need to sit somebody because he hasn't lost his roster spot. He got injured. He didn't play very bad. So you have options at your disposal to use. I'd love to see Taylor Radish get a chance because he's been sitting on the taxi squad for what feels like an eternity. Jamel Smith is also on the taxi squad again. If you want to put Ben Thomas in for one game, I'd like to see how he does. I'm not a huge fan of that being a permanent solution, but if there's a rotating cast with Ben Thomas in it, I guess that's fine. Like you have options, why not use them?
And Ben Thomas could surprise you. You never know. He could be the next Ross Colton who came up and nobody was really expecting to do much and ended up, basically saying, I deserve a spot on this lineup. But you're right. A lot of options right now. It's a good problem to have for the Lightning because it's we have so many good players that we just can't fit them all in, and half the time they have to get traded, like a Volkov, for example, who we moved out just a couple of weeks ago. But lots of positives there. Hopefully, we can find ways to make it all work as we move closer and closer to the end of the season. Good to get that bounce back win back in the win column. I'm sure that boosts everybody's confidence up a little bit. Looking forward to the next game.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much for watching this edition of Quick Strikes on the Bay Bolts channel. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Ring that bell for notifications. Comment down below. Tell us what you thought about this game, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you think of Volley Sports Sun and the Lightning's new presentation for their games. Also, make sure to follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, for all your news, notes, and highlights every single game. We do the live game recaps on Twitter. Come hang out with us. Come say hello. Come ask questions, especially the questions after the game, but definitely during the game as well. For this edition of Quick Strikes, for Jake Ricker, my name is Michael Wax. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, Tampa Bay Lightning are still defending Stanley Cup champions.
Go Bolts.